Hey guys, Captain Daniel here. So today I want to share something funny but super real. How I basically seduced my mom, but not in a romantic way, obviously, but in the way I learned how to understand women's psychology and use that to build a deeper relationship with her. So it's actually one of the most powerful lessons I ever had, and it changed the way I relate to women completely. So let me give you some context. Growing up, my mom and I used to fight a lot. She'd criticize me and I get very defensive. And I tried to tell her what I wanted and she shut down immediately. I always felt like we were on different planets. I remember one time I even told her about a really dark period in my life where I wanted to end my life because I felt bullied and I opened up to her and she rejected. But she called me sensitive and it really stuck with me and made me realize she just didn't know how to connect with me. And I didn't either. But then I had this shift. I realized, what if I treated this like I was dating my mom? What if I used the same emotional intelligence and psychology that I learned from dating, but with my own mother? And so here's what I did. For example, when she visited me in Korea, I decided to pick her up from the airport like how I did when I was dating a certain girl. I even made a sign to greet her saying, "Welcome, mom," and had her name on there. And I created an emotional spike, something she'd like to always remember and like a grand gesture that she would remember from her trip to Korea and how she would on a date. And I noticed that whenever I complimented about her weight loss, like telling her, "Mom, your jawline," she'd light up. So I kept rewarding the little progress she made because that's what keeps a woman motivated. I stopped assuming what she wanted. I noticed she really cared about looking pretty, like how she'd buy clothes, wear makeup, or get jealous of my exes. So I shifted from forcing my agenda to really understanding her blueprint. What made her? I asked her what makes her beautiful or what she actually insecure about. This is exactly what I do with the girl. Learn her blueprint and feed her the right emotional things that she needs in that moment or in her life. So there's times when I lash out or say things that really hurt me. And obviously, because she's my mother, I took very things personally. And I realized, like with any woman, that's just emotional overflow. Really mean what she said. So instead of reacting, I calm down or even hug her. And I remember I learned this, always hug a woman until her shoulders relax, right? So even if I hugged her, if it wasn't too serious, I would just hug her. It was really intense though. I said, "Mom, I love you, but I really need a break. Can we talk again when I'm calm?" So that's leadership. That's the masculine kind of presence she needed. It made her trust me more, like women who trust a man who can handle her storms, because women can be a very calm ocean or it could be a typhoon. And I also noticed she never complimented me directly, but she always wanted my compliments. So I stopped fishing for validation. Instead, I asked her for advice. Like, "Mom, do I look good in this outfit?" Or, "What do you think about this post on Instagram?" So she loved feeling like an expert and me actually caring about her opinion. Just like with the girl, she wants to feel like she's contributing, not just receiving, right? She wants to like she plays a part and you actually care about what she thinks. So even if we had arguments, I always try to end on a good note. I make her laugh or send her a song about mothers, try to make her feel emotional in a positive way. Because like with any woman, she always remember the last emotional feeling of the interaction I'm having with her. So let me give you a few stories on really how this worked and how I improved my relationship with my mom. My mom said she didn't care about losing weight. She gave up on losing the weight she gained from the baby fat from having me and my brother. But I noticed she always asked about beauty routines like gua sha or any of the skincare I was doing, especially when my skin looked better and I was doing like skin stuff to make myself look younger. So instead of lecturing, I tied her weight loss to her looks. And I said, "Mom, if you lost weight, your jawline will look even better. The gua sha will work, but I think if you add in these little weight loss things, I think it will even look better." And I remember when her coworkers started to notice it, she was definitely hooked. And that was the turning point. She needed validation from other women, not just me, my dad, or my brother. She wanted other women to call her pretty. Because I noticed this when one of my exes was able to break through my mom because she complimented her all the time. And I realized with my mom, she loved hearing compliments from other women acknowledging her. She didn't really care about my dad or my brother. She knew that we were going to call her pretty, but she really wanted to hear from other people, especially women, that she was still attractive. And another story is that she always hated traveling because I realized she was just insecure about her weight and her looks. So I framed trips with her, like a Paris trip, that's a chance for her to show off her new look and get compliments. I told her, "When we actually go to Paris, I want to take you to the original Chanel store and buy you a new bag because she always wanted Chanel. And I used to use this to give her materialistic values, and I wanted to use that as more of a carrot for her to lose weight or do things that I wanted. But I realized when I use it as a frame, like, you'll be the star in the Chanel store, you'll be this whole new woman who gets to reward herself because now you're all pretty and looking attractive. Now she started getting excited, and she's already planning for her 70th birthday to go to Paris with me. Because again, I read her emotional blueprint and connected to her deeper desires, her deeper emotional desires, not her surface level values. So this is how learning more about my mom, right? The things of how I could influence certain behavior, how I could open up to her, how I could show her that I really cared about her. I remember another moment I noticed something about myself is that my emotions with my mom was going crazy. Like, I realized I started becoming emotional whenever I thought about mom. I started watching movies where there's mothers involved and I would just start crying. And I remember the first trip to Korea, I started opening up to her. And the biggest lesson I learned is when I wanted validation from mom, I didn't ask for it and I expect it. I just showed her my emotional love for her and my emotional value to her without expecting anything back. And that was another big epiphany for me, is that when you want something from your mom or any kind of woman, I first gave first without expecting back. So if she didn't give me the exact value I wanted, the emotional love or the compliments or whatever, I didn't care. I just kept doing what I did and I showed her what I loved about her. Another thing I realized also is that I listened to not what my mom was saying, but how she was saying stuff. I was more present to her. I saw her body language. I was trying to see if there's a moment I could tease her, there's a moment I could joke with her, or there's a moment I could open up to her. And I realized with my mother, just being present to where she was at emotionally, right? That helped me out understand where she was coming from. And that helped me in a lot of scenarios where I felt like, when my mom is in joking mode, I joked more about her, but I never teased her in a bad way. I always made jokes about her. I made her laugh and I acted like a goofball. And the biggest thing is I never judged her for her being her. When she didn't have any makeup, I found out ways to compliment her, why she's pretty in other ways because of how funny she is and all this kind of stuff. So I never tried to bring her down, but I tried to reward any kind of behavior she was doing that made her a better person, and certain behaviors that I wanted her to do to make her healthier or just be herself or just be happy in life. Because that's one thing I realized with my mom now is she wants more emotions in her life. She got married to my dad. She's having whatever, but she wants to have more fun. She wants to have more positive emotions in her life, positive or negative. Even if it was a negative emotion, I use that negative emotion to create some kind of value to transition it into making something better. For example, if she had a negative emotion, I would acknowledge it and tell her, okay, so do you want to just be heard or do you want me to help you with something? So based on what she wanted, sometimes I just gave her money. Or I remember I gave her this tip because she works on tips. And I remember instead of me just sending her money the normal way, I made my dad make an event where he took out 100 bills in cash and he gave her $500 in bills, went to her work because I forced him to, and said that was a present and the tip was in the envelope. So it was more of an event. I created an emotional event for her to really understand and feel what she was getting, right? I wanted to create a story behind everything. Because I think with my mom, she watches a lot of movies and a lot of Korean dramas. She wants to have some kind of Korean drama in her life. It's not about all this like logic and do this and she's just happy. I think even with my mom, she's a woman who wants to have this emotional kind of experience while she's living her day-to-day life. And what's crazy is this taught me a lot about how to be better with women in my life. I realized if I learned how to make my mom fall in love with me, she already loved me, right? She had unconditional love, but use that love as more of a positive experience and me focusing on what I could give to her first instead of just focusing on what my mom could do for me. I realized a lot of things changed in my personal relationship with women. Women want to feel seen and not judged. So they want to feel emotionally safe and not forced. They want to feel comfort. They want to feel connection. They want to feel acknowledged. They want to know that you actually care about them. They want to feel like the man is leading, but also tuning into them, acknowledging where they are. And most of all, they remember the emotions, not the logic. Okay. So when I stopped chasing my mom's validation, I realized this is the same with any kind of woman. When you lead with calmness, read her signals, and always try to bring her value, especially emotional ones, and create positive emotional endings, you don't have to chase. She naturally gravitates to you because you're the man who gets her. Even if you give her negative emotions, right? And she gets negative experiences from you. If in the end you give her enough positive emotions, she'll always remember the positive emotions more than the negative. So you always have to make sure she remembers you with a very intense, emotional, positive experience. And she'll always remember all the positive things that she received from you. And that was the same thing with mom. No matter what happens to my mom, I always, if it was negative, I always try, especially when I went home and visited for Christmas or whatever, or anytime we had an experience and there was a fight, I always try to end it on a very positive note. It's not always doing crazy positive things, but I'm saying make sure there's something positive, more positive experiences that she has, even if you're going to have negative experiences with your mom, because obviously you're with your mom. So you're going to have sometimes when you fight, and mothers always trigger us the most, right? Because that's the first woman we want to receive love from. But if you find a way to create more positive experiences through emotions, she's always going to see you and remember you as the son that always makes her happy. And she's going to always associate her happiness to you. And that's the same thing with women in your life. Always try to end the note, not always being positive, but just giving some kind of positive value, a win-win situation for both of you. But it's not always chasing and simping. It's about creating a win-win situation so you're also happy. Because if you're happy, you're going to make your woman happy. But always consider making the woman happy first emotionally before she makes you happy physically, or you want to be happy emotionally. But most guys, we sometimes want physical happiness, right? So guys, if you're struggling with dating relationships or even your own mother, maybe it's not about tactics or lines or all this game you're trying to learn. Maybe it's about the emotional intelligence and learning how to read and respond to the woman in front of you, i.e. your mom, if that's the only woman in front of you. So that's how I turn my biggest critic into my biggest fan. By me dating my mom in the best way possible, learning how to seduce her, learning to use all the stuff that I learned in how to date women, it was just one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences. Because no matter what I do, no matter how much, me and my mom argue again, I just realized that as long as I treat my mom like a woman I love, she always comes back to her presence, feminine energy, where I could be the masculine and I can always lead. So if you want to learn more about these emotional strategies or how to build attraction like this, where it's real, authentic, and it's really lovey, because imagine like feeling that same love you have for your mom or the same love that your mom gives you, you could feel that with a woman. I think that's what we're missing in life, right? So comment below or book a coaching call with me and let's get you to that next level, guys. So thanks for listening, and I hope this really helps.